There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from loving someone who keeps almost arriving. They reach toward you, and then just as you lean in, they step back. Not far enough to leave, just far enough that you feel it. And so you move closer to close the gap they created, and somehow, without ever quite meaning to, you become the one who is always reaching. You have told yourself many stories about why this is happening. That you love too much, that you are too needy, that if you could just relax, stop checking your phone, stop needing reassurance, they would stop pulling away. But here is the question underneath all of that. What if the distance is not a reaction to you at all? What if it is not something you are causing, but something they are doing, a pattern that existed long before you and will continue long after, unless someone finally puts language to it? That is what this video is for, because what you are living inside is not a flaw in your love. It is a dynamic with a shape, a mechanism, and a name. And once you can see the shape of it, it stops being able to hide inside your self-doubt. To understand the push and the pull, you have to understand that you are not simply dealing with two different personalities. You are dealing with two different nervous system strategies for handling closeness, both formed long before either of you met. An anxious attachment style develops early, often in environments where love was inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes withdrawn, never quite predictable. The nervous system adapts by staying alert, by reaching, by monitoring the relationship constantly for signs that connection might be slipping away, because in the past, it sometimes did. An avoidant attachment style develops through a different kind of inconsistency, one where closeness itself was met with intrusion, control, or disappointment. The nervous system adapts in the opposite direction. It learns that distance is safety, that needing someone too much is where the danger lives, that the way to stay intact is to keep one foot outside the relationship at all times. Neither of these is a personality flaw. They are survival strategies, built by circumstances neither of you chose. But when an anxious nervous system and an avoidant nervous system are placed into the same relationship, they do not average each other out. They activate each other, and that activation has a name. Here is the mechanism, laid out plainly. When the anxious partner senses distance, the nervous system reads it as threat. So it does what it has always done. It reaches. It calls. It asks for reassurance. It tries to close the gap because closing the gap has always felt like the only way to feel safe again. This is sometimes called protest behavior, and it makes complete sense from the inside. The problem is what it triggers in an avoidant partner. Because to the avoidant nervous system, that same reaching, the calling, the checking, the need for reassurance, does not register as love. It registers as pressure, as a demand on a system that already treats closeness as danger. And so the avoidant partner does what their own nervous system has always done in response to pressure. They pull back, which the anxious partner then reads as confirmation of the exact thing they were afraid of. So they reach harder, which the avoidant partner reads as more pressure. So they pull back further. Two people, each acting exactly the way their nervous system taught them to act in order to feel safe, and together, producing a cycle where neither of them ever actually gets what they need. Now here is the part that almost nobody explains clearly, and it is the part that keeps people in this cycle far longer than logic would predict. The distance itself becomes part of what makes the connection feel so intense. When closeness is reliable, the nervous system does not have to work for it. There is no spike, no chase, no relief. But when warmth arrives unpredictably, after distance, after silence, after the ache of not knowing if it is coming back, the brain responds to that unpredictability with a surge of craving. Not because the connection is deeper, because the uncertainty itself is stimulating. This is the same basic mechanism that makes a slot machine more compelling than a vending machine. A vending machine gives you what you paid for every time, and nobody feels a thrill pulling the lever. A slot machine pays out unpredictably, and that unpredictability is precisely what keeps a hand reaching for it again. An avoidant partner who runs hot and cold is, without meaning to, running the exact same mechanism. The warm moments feel more intoxicating because they arrive after periods of doubt. And the anxious nervous system, already primed to associate love with uncertainty, mistakes that intensity for proof that this connection matters more than a calmer one ever could. It does not. It only feels that way. Intensity and intimacy are not the same thing, and this dynamic is very good at disguising one as the other. If you recognize yourself as the one who reaches, it is worth saying clearly, this is not evidence that something is wrong with you. People who end up in the anxious role are often deeply attuned. They notice shifts in tone. They sense withdrawal before it is spoken. They care enough to keep trying even when trying is exhausting. Those are not weaknesses. They are forms of emotional intelligence that, in a different relationship, with a partner who could receive them, would be a genuine strength. But that same attunement, aimed at someone who experiences closeness as pressure, becomes a trap. Because the more perceptive you are, the faster you notice the distance. And the faster you notice it, the faster you reach to close it. And the faster you reach, the faster an avoidant partner retreats. You're not doing this wrong. You're doing exactly what your nervous system has always done to keep connection safe. The problem was never your sensitivity. The problem is what happens when that sensitivity meets a partner whose safety strategy runs in the opposite direction. It is worth understanding the other side of this as clearly as your own, because misunderstanding it is part of what keeps the cycle running. When an avoidant partner pulls away, it rarely feels, from the inside, like rejection. It feels like relief, like air returning to a room that had started to feel small. This is not usually a conscious calculation. It is a deactivating strategy, a set of automatic behaviors that create distance whenever closeness starts to feel like too much. Deactivating strategies can look like sudden busyness, a cooling in tone, a retreat into logic when the conversation turns emotional, a quiet, unspoken decision to focus on flaws, yours or the relationship's, right at the moment things are going well, because closeness that is going well is, to this nervous system, the most alarming kind. This does not mean the avoidant partner does not care. Often they care a great deal, and the pulling away is not a verdict on you. It is a reflex. Protecting a system that once learned closeness was where the damage happened. Understanding this will not make the distance easier to live inside, but it will stop you from mistaking a reflex for a message about your worth. Every cycle like this has a moment that keeps it alive, and it is worth naming exactly. It is the moment the avoidant partner comes back. Maybe distance built for days, and then, unprompted, they reach out warmly. Maybe they were cold all week, and then suddenly attentive, present, easy to talk to, the version of them you fell for in the first place. In that moment, all the doubt evaporates. You think, this is who they really are. This is what it could always feel like. And it can feel that way for a little while, because the warmth is real in the moment it happens. But if the pattern has repeated before, it will very likely repeat again. The return is not evidence that the avoidance has resolved. It is often simply the pendulum swinging back before it swings away once more. This is the moment that keeps anxious partners investing far past the point logic would recommend, because each return resets the hope. And hope is one of the hardest things a person can be asked to let go of. So what actually interrupts this? Not chasing harder, not withdrawing to punish them, hoping it will provoke a change. Both of those are still moves inside the same game, and the game does not end by playing it more skillfully. It ends by stepping outside it. For the anxious partner, that means learning to sit with distance without immediately trying to close it. Not ignoring your needs, but pausing before you act on the urge to reach. Asking yourself, is this genuine communication, or is this the old alarm system trying to manage a feeling of threat? That pause, uncomfortable as it is where a different response becomes possible. It also means being honest about what you actually require from a relationship and refusing to spend years auditioning for a partner who consistently treats your needs as pressure. Wanting reassurance is not too much. Wanting a partner capable of offering it without retreating is not too much either. If someone cannot meet you there after real, direct conversation, that is information, not a puzzle for you to keep solving. For anyone recognizing the avoidant pattern in themselves, the work runs in the opposite direction, noticing the urge to retreat the moment things feel good, and staying present in that discomfort for one more minute than instinct wants to allow. Closeness is not the danger it once was. That is a hard thing to relearn, but it is learnable. Here is something worth sitting with, because it contradicts almost everything the push and pull cycle teaches you to believe. Secure connection does not feel like intensity. It does not feel like a rush of relief after fear. It feels most of the time quiet, steady, almost undramatic. There is no spike because there is no manufactured scarcity to spike against. If you have spent a long time inside an anxious avoidant dynamic, that steadiness can initially feel like something is missing, like boredom or a lack of chemistry. This is worth naming honestly. It is not boredom. It is the absence of a craving cycle your nervous system had mistaken for love. Real security is not the lack of feeling. It is the presence of feeling without the constant undertow of fear beneath it. It takes time to trust that steady can also be deeply felt. But it can. If any part of this described your relationship, or a relationship you left behind, take a moment before you close this video. You are not too much. You are not imagining the distance, and you were not wrong to feel the ache of never quite arriving. What you were living inside had a mechanism, and mechanisms can be understood, worked with, and in many cases changed by you, by them, or simply by your decision about who you continue giving your reaching to. In the next video, we are going deeper into a related pattern, the constructed persona so many people fall in love with before ever meeting the person underneath it, and what happens to a relationship once you realize the version of them you connected with may never have fully existed. It is one of the most disorienting realizations in any close relationship, and once you see it, it changes how you read everything that came before. If that is something you want to understand clearly, make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it. And if this video helped you see your own pattern a little more clearly, share it with someone who is still reaching towards someone who keeps stepping back. It might be exactly the language they have been missing. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.